Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's an absolute honor to be able to
Yes,
be a
thank
pleasure.
you.
It's,
Oh,
Thank
nice
you.
to meet you.
Thanks. I'm so excited.
We are Hot Button. More specifically, I'm Randall Beatrice. You've met Matt Nudeboom.
Hey, hello.
Off the side in the producer's seat is Austin Blakesley.
Hello.
Hi, Austin.
And for our listeners out there, we are with Alyse Knorr, author of Boss Fight's GoldenEye 007, I have here on the table, as well as an associate professor of English at the Regis University in Denver, Colorado, co-editor of Switchback Books, and writer of several poetry collections, such as Mega City Redux, Copper Mother, and Annotated Glass, here with us via Zoom to discuss her GoldenEye novel. It's so fascinating. For those unaware, it essentially chronicles the entire in-depth timeline of how the N64 classic came to be, from its earliest conception to its debut. And you can order it online right now at bossfightbooks.com or Amazon. And Alyse, how's it going today?
Wait, before we continue, we had a disagreement. Is it Alice or Alyse?
It's Alyse.
I was right.
I can't believe it. I was positive I was correct. Positive. So, well done. Very good. And of course, you can expect the next upcoming book, There Once Was a Man from Nantucket, A History of Limericks in the Western World.
And as Matt has hinted at, first and foremost, it goes without saying just how thankful we are to have this talk with you.
Absolutely.
We love GoldenEye. It's really special to us. I got my my Klob shirt on. I don't know
if she's able to see it from back there.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It used to fit better.
Yeah.
Insert coin, yeah.
That's amazing.
So I'm not sure how familiar you are with our podcast, but it's all about hard-hitting research and telling stories of significant things that have happened in gaming history. Everything from troubled tales of development to controversies to business failures, successes as well, of course, such with this subject. One that has been at the top of my list since we began this years ago.
Literally, we wrote a list of episodes before we started, and GoldenEye, I think, was the third or second one.
It's been on the backlog for a long time.
Amazing.
Your book was absolutely vital in the process for organizing our script. The moment it came across that Kickstarter, I immediately jumped on the opportunity. And it was a fun read.
Thank you.
Yes, it was actually, Brandy actually let me borrow his copy. It was a pleasure to read.
Yes, I got it back with
Thank you.
Notes. Like,
yeah, I didn't want to highlight anything because it's not my copy of the book. And so I got all these like sticky notes just sticking out of the side of the book.
And we were shocked to learn so much, especially because we thought we'd already known everything there was to know about GoldenEye. It's neat to discover that we were wrong.
There's a lot out there. Yeah.
I was also blown away that I saw that you wrote the one in their series on the Super Mario Brothers 3, which the folks sitting with me can vouch that is also a forever favorite of mine.
Yeah, we're already in talks. We were just like, listen, if this goes well,
occurred. I can't wait to get it.
Yeah,
next,
we're like, listen, if this goes well, you want to talk about Super Mario Brothers 3 on the podcast?
I would love to.
Yes.
I would love to.
All
Yes,
right.
anytime.
That said, I want to use this hour wisely. So, are you ready for a few questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, fire away.
Great. By serendipitous circumstance, the great white whale of video games re-releases, that is GoldenEye 007, was finally ported to current-gen consoles this past month, albeit through some unusual means. Curiously, are you still a gaming enthusiast? Have you tried either of those versions out yet?
I am. I've played it on the Switch. I even got online with a few old high school buddies
Really?
and played.
Awesome.
Played remotely. Of course, you have to completely reconfigure your controller.
Yeah, they're
to make
wonky
it
on there.
to make it make sense.
I cannot believe we're having this conversation because
he did the Switch version. I did the Xbox.
I did the Switch version.
Game
Listen,
Pass one. But...
I just want to say, the game was originally single analog, and so I played the game single analog default control. But it's like you could not stand it. You needed that double analog.
It was less about that because I'm accustomed plenty to that single analog too. It's just. It's not the same controller. The shape, it's
exactly.
Unless you have that USB one that's like rare now that you can.
Right. Right. Yeah, when I was playing through the game to write the book, I played on the original N64 with my original N64 controller, and the muscle memory comes back,
Yeah,
but then when I was playing it on my Switch, I expected to use it, the way that you use a modern
putting
console,
shoot on the L button was that's a sin.
You've just
What am I, left-handed?
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be the trigger. And
you guys have you've just completely destroyed my argument with Randy. I was just like, I'm like, the controls are fine. Stop whining, okay? And
this
it's just
shoot
like,
was all.
I can't believe this. I can't believe. But that's incredible, by the way.
I'm a Halo guy.
Well, and
so.
the up down is the weirdest thing, right? Like how the inverted up and down. That's the one that's a real
Because it
doozy.
inverts by default, I think, even in the N64.
Yeah.
This guy, though, that's what. To my
all
right.
inverted all the way.
No, I'm not. We're not flying planes
I got a backwards
here.
brain.
You know what?
Exactly.
Don't judge me.
You know what? I don't know if I turned this off in the original N64 one. I had to turn off auto look ahead. Because when you're aiming at machine guns, it's like you're aiming up and you get the perfect shot, and then Bond's like, "What's on the ground?" You know, it's just.
I know. Yeah, it's so stupid.
Do you have a favorite mission, weapon, or music track from the game?
Oh, I really like the depot track.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's
That's
kind of a
punchy one.
it's
That's
kind of a
different,
deeper cut. Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's got kind of like a cool groove.
Yeah.
I really like the laser. I think it's fun not to have to worry about ammo. And I
That's
feel
true.
very
Yeah,
sci-fi.
yeah.
I'm kind of a sci-fi person.
Can shoot
And
through walls.
my favorite mission is probably it's probably that really, really, really annoying one toward the end, Control, where you're trying to keep Natalia
Defender of
alive.
Control out there.
Wow.
Only because when you do it, you're
It's
like,
elaborate.
I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but like you're like, oh my god, I just finally did it.
You're
Took
free
9
to if
hours.
you like. We're
yeah.
okay here.
That was
We
No
are
FCC,
an R-rated
FTC.
podcast. You can curse.
that is
Yeah.
actually the last level that me and Randy both beat on 00 Agent before we got Temple.
Yeah.
That was like the one level that I was like, I'm so thankful this is the last level, because it's like
Still
I'm
having
it's
flashbacks
like, I
as a
can't
kid.
do
When
anything
you-
more than
when
this.
you like.
It's a really horrible
yeah,
level. I mean,
after
but
protecting Talia
yeah,
for the
it's-
first time.
It is
does
very
feel good.
iconic.
and she's like, James, you're being too loud. I
Yeah,
can
can
barely
you
think
keep it
over here.
down?
And I'm like, go fuck yourself,
yeah.
Natalia. It's like, I'm keeping you alive.
I was just saying, going back to this, it's like
It's a long one too. I mean, Control's
Yeah.
like
Yes.
yeah.
Natalia in
Yeah.
the movie is such like an empowered Bond woman, and in
Yes.
the game she's kind of a sociopathic bimbo a little bit, because she's like
Yes.
she's going through jungle.
Yes.
And
She's
just
having
like,
fun slaughtering. She's
She's
just
like,
like
it's so fun to shoot people.
I think that it just I think Control captures a lot of like the humor in the game.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
those guys put it in there just to piss you off, right?
True.
And also the very
Tracy
90s
Boris
quality of like
runoff, yeah.
oh yeah, Boris. And the fact that there's no save points, right? So if you
No.
are at the very end and she gets killed, you're
Yeah,
back at the
that's
beginning
it.
in the fucking elevator. And so,
Oh my god!
Starting with the drone guns in the ceiling once more.
yeah, so it's very much a product of its time, right?
Yeah.
Like of that
Stealth in it,
challenge.
too.
I
It
will
does
say-
encompass everything.
Yes.
I will say, Control is very frustrating. I would not take that. Like, you can't take that level out and have the same game. It is
Already
iconic, and it
disagreed.
is
Right.
very good. It's
Yeah.
like it's a love-hate level for me, for sure. But yes, I agree.
And it
that's
makes
great.
Cradle feel easy, right?
does.
Like when you get to
Yeah,
Cradle,
by
you're like,
comparison,
oh,
you're like, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Xena's more of a challenge than Alec is. So.
Yeah, beware of
it's true.
Aztec, though.
It's true. Yes,
Aztec
don't
is
mess
yeah.
with a woman named
yeah.
Xenia on the top.
Yeah.
What was your first Bond film, and which is your number one? Do you prefer like the suave era, the campy era, or the gritty era? Like,
I'm one of those millennials who was introduced to the entire franchise through this game.
Same.
So the first
Right.
movie I saw was GoldenEye,
Yep.
and that'll always be my favorite. Pierce Brosnan will always be my Bond. Can't look back.
Yeah,
Daniel
yeah.
Craig is too messy. He's always sweating. He's sweaty, and he's like burly and like big, and I'm
is
just like, I want my effete, glamorous Pierce Brosnan.
This game, and then and then that movie was like probably one of the first like strong rapports I built with my dad. Like that we could come to
yeah.
like an agreement on.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah,
My grandfather always loved James Bond, and he has a tradition of after the opening epic crazy action sequence,
Yeah.
he will always turn to you and he'll say the same thing every time. He'll turn to you and say, "It could happen."
And I think GoldenEye's a good answer. It saved the, essentially the franchise. I know the
Right.
director, he did Casino Royale, essentially saving it again later
Yes.
after Die Another Day.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah,
think,
it's a cool movie.
I think GoldenEye and Casino Royale.
Great score, too.
Yeah, they both come very
yeah.
close, but like GoldenEye just edges it out just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not only just because I think you mentioned this in the book, it's like they managed to reinvent Bond for that era, but it's like if you actually look closely, we were watching it one night. If you look closely enough, all of the pieces of the formula are there. I realized I'm like, oh my God, the bad guy has a secret lair underneath a fake lake, and you don't realize it because
they disguise it to be way more like
it
modern.
When you're watching it, it makes total sense. It's like, it's a satellite. It's a satellite antenna. Of course, he's got like control operations, but then you're like, it's an underground
satellite
base
that just fell over a few years ago. I think right. That was the real one.
I mean, I talk about this in the book, but that's why I think it's such an interesting film because it's got all those classic trademark James Bond things, but it's also very much a product of its time, of like the world of 1995, and of transitioning Bond from like the Cold War into the modern era.
Yes,
so I think it's pretty cool.
I love you also like in reference. You pointed out in your book that it kind of it's sort of like represented our fears of ever evolving technology, like and like going into the new like generation.
Yes, I think I mentioned this when we were watching it, but the GoldenEye satellite, it's not a missile platform or a laser. It's an EMP. Really? It's an EMP gun. And it's insane
That's
that it's
very
it's a very modern take of just like an EMP blast can do more destruction than like a nuke, like a laser or a nuke, and it's like it completely will destroy people's lives. So.
Yeah, it's like it's gonna shut down the world's banking system. Yeah. So it's not in some ways it's not as big as, but I mean when you remember this is like the Y2K era, right? No. Like that is what we were scared of.
Exactly.
And I love how sneaking around even in the game you're like you're not stealing weapons things and you know like you're stealing data and you're stealing
that there's like value to that was like new to audiences.
That is such a good point. Yeah,
and you have to shoot computers. You have to shoot computers and screens and cameras. You know it's really interesting.
I thought okay. You know what?
We'll get.
You know what? I won't gush anymore because we'll go for another 10 minutes.
It had to be overwhelming to collect all that information, conduct those interviews, and edit your material into such a cohesive like narrative of events. What was it like sculpting that mountain of research into the book's final like polished state? How long did that take?
Well, I'm so glad you asked because I think this is really fun. This is what I really enjoyed was the collecting stage. I knew going into this project that there was already so much information about GoldenEye's development out there, but it was all in the form of like a random one-off, listicle, 10 things you didn't know about GoldenEye, or even like just standalone, oral history interviews with individual members of the team. So what I wanted to do was make the definitive history, gather all of it together. I really think I've read everything that's out there, put it in order, put it in a story, and go to the team and interview the members of the team about the things no one's ever asked them, and fill in those little missing gaps. So I had
most I've learned about their like where their actual like office. That was
totally. So because I had already done all the research that everyone else had already done, I was able to ask them about some of the deeper cut stuff. So basically, I just had a huge Google Doc full of everything I was finding. I was organizing it by type of information and category. I put it in a linear order since this was a story from like point A to point B. And then I interviewed the guys and asked them to fill in all the fun little details. Okay. And I think in some cases they were a little relieved, like, oh, I get to talk about something new, or like,
I bet not being asked the same shit. Ever, approached me about that before. Like normally they're probably used to, delivering the same lines, but was there anything you chose to leave out? Like
that was going to be my next
question.
There
was a lot. Yes, there was a lot because I tend to write really, really long. The first draft of this was probably
sounds like someone we know, Alyse.
chooses
to leave nothing out of his scripts and they go for 3 hours.
Important.
It's great. You gotta have it. And then I mean, I just like having it all and then paring it back. I'm hoping eventually to publish some standoff articles, but some of my favorite stuff that I had to leave out was about like GoldenEye folklore, especially around the speedrunning community. So speedrunner, legendary speedrunners. And that's what's so amazing.
Streets 112.
There's just some really incredible stories of like cheating and like 12-year-old prodigies in Pakistan and like all these just wild things that I had to leave out. But but there's some good stuff.
Until next time.
That would be an interesting idea for a title. It's like you could do Beyond GoldenEye, which is just about this, like just talk about the fan community. There's got to be so many interesting stories there.
And what's really nuts is that when the paperback of this came out, that wasn't even. Now there's a hardback coming out that's like the extended version.
I need it,
but that's still not even everything. I just in my Google Drive have like even more stuff, and someday we'll do something with it.
I mean, you know what? One day maybe we'll hit you up and just be like, just send us your notes. It's like we're not going to publish it anywhere, but we just want to like we're so hungry for GoldenEye trivia.
We're just going to cite all this for our episode.
It's like it's just going to be for us. We're just going to hoard it greedily. It's just like we just want to know. Yeah,
totally. Yeah,
red yarn. One of the aspects of your book I found so charming was the overall positive attitude of the studio's like working environment. Did you find that discovery surprising, considering the toxicity surrounding like modern game development? Not to mention the sheer number of limitations facing the team, such as like time and budget, adding to that pressure.
For sure. I mean, every single guy on the team that I talked to was like, this was the best time of my life. I had so much fun. It was so great.
That often.
But they were also working like 18-hour days.
I know.
So I had to really thread the line in framing it of like, this is what they told me. And also, like, you know, this could be really toxic. This could take a toll on relationships.
It's a difficult
and on,
balance.
You know,
you want to be honest and take them at face value, but also kind of like challenge some. Like,
totally. And part of that is the story of why they left, right? Like that they felt they weren't being properly rewarded, and so there's two sides. But I mean, yet they had really glowing things to say, and so I think that just trying to tell the story of like what this. I tried to frame it as just like, what did this moment in gaming development history feel like? And I think a big part of why they felt so excited to spend that many hours is because they were working on everything. Like they all had a hand in everything. There was only 10 of them. And so it just felt really exciting. It kind of reminds me of like that novel that just came out Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and that excitement of that era of game development.
I think what struck me too is like
very passionate.
It's like it really does highlight it's like how different crunch feels when depending on how meaningful the work is in front of you. This team of like, you know what, like 10 people or so.
Without collaborative,
it's like their work is so important. Every single thing they do for this game has such a big impact that it's like they were so happy to put in those 18 hours versus like when you were forced to put in crunch, it is perhaps the most miserable.
I know
time.
it got to it was Addie Smith a little hard, unfortunately.
I mean, some of them really did have like Addie Smith had like heart palpitations and panic attacks, but the other thing to remember is that most of them, Addie Smith is one who was older, but most of them were fresh out of college or didn't even go to college, and so they had that energy. They didn't have families yet. They had something to prove, and what you were saying too, Matthew, is like they literally put their names and initials in the game, like they are in the game everywhere. So it was their baby. They loved
modest. It. They're each so respectful of one another, and like there's nothing but kind things.
When I tell you, I would try to gush to them like, this game defined my childhood. It's so perfect. They would visibly cringe and blush.
Just couldn't handle the compliment.
And they were like, no. They would say like, it wasn't me. I didn't do anything important. It was all the other guys. It was Martin. It was Dave. Like they were just so humble. And I think it's maybe because they're British, but they're just the
it's
culture. Yes,
I know.
And then they're emailing me like they're emailing me whole lines of code from the game and maps they have in their attic, and they're like, "What else do you need, Alyse? Like, here's all my personal photos of the time." I at one point I sent them the manuscript just so they could check their own quotes and make sure they were being represented fairly.
That's very
a couple of the guys sent me back copy editing, like you missed a comma on page 10, just so you know.
This guy,
like,
that's what he did for me for this.
I've done a lot of writing, and I edit for him, and it's like I'm sending back revisions. I'm like, this is supposed to be a question mark.
But I'm like, this is like Martin Hollis. He like made this game, and he sent me back.
And he like speaks at like conventions and stuff where like fans will just go up and I know I would like, I don't want to bother him, but if I ever saw him in the wild, I'd just like nerd out and like feel so bad.
And he's so humble. I mean, he didn't. He's the one that I didn't speak to over Zoom, but he did email me a lot of thoughts, and he was just. They're all so generous. They're great guys. Yeah.
That's amazing. You just get an email back. It's like, hey, I wrote a chapter for you, and in fact, just send me your draft, your book. I'll finish it up for you. Just send it over. I'll do it. And it's like, wow. That's incredible.
GoldenEye is often referenced for its long-standing mysteries and unexplained little details, much in part to when players would accidentally encounter incomplete features, leftover assets, or cut content. Were there any tantalizing components of the game that you wanted to finally ask the developers to shed light on, but like maybe they either couldn't answer or did not know the answer to after so many years?
I would say maybe they just didn't remember.
Yeah. Sure. No, there were definitely some things they didn't remember. One that they pointed out that I had never noticed, that I think a lot of people hadn't noticed, is that I believe it's at the end of Streets or Statue. One of those. The gate, the missing gate.
Yeah, I know.
There's a whole art asset that didn't get plugged in. So it's just like a blank. It's just an empty. And that's still making Duncan Botwood cringe. But my favorite conversation in those interviews was talking to...
their shoulders over it, being like...
Oh yeah, like it's haunting him. And the frame rate, they're still embarrassed about. But I was talking to Duncan Botwood about the island, and I was fighting with him. I was like, Duncan, like the island's really cool because it was like this thing that we all wondered about.
And he's like, I wish we took it out.
He was like, no, it's sloppy. Like, stop.
I was shocked by that being just like, it's like, wow, he really didn't. He was ashamed of that. It's like everybody loves that.
I think one person's mistake is another's like treasure, like of
totally. And Martin Hollis has definitely defended over the years a lot of the messiness as part of the game's charm.
Part of that's kind of gives it its
what do you call it?
Personality.
I loved, I learned from your book that I never even noticed it before, but that the action continues as you are pausing until it gets to that screen. I had never really the watch. It's like
I knew about that.
You can still get shot as.
It's the worst.
Precious
it's
seconds.
The worst.
I never really put much thought into it, but it was just so shocking to say that it's like they knew that was there and they left it in anyway because they're like, you can't just pause in the middle of a huge gunfight.
Their definition of realism is great because it's like it's not.
Yes, it's not realistic.
It's
but
not.
It's
just that the rules are consistent with the world, but also if it's funny, they're like like when people walk into explosions,
the chairs blow up. Yeah. I mean, so the pause thing really got me because when I was doing my playthrough for the book, I had a baby. I had an infant, and so I was trying to play through the game. And I'd be getting shot at, and my wife would be like, "Hey, can you come help me with this?" And it's like when your mom calls out, like, "Hey, you need to come down for dinner." And I was like, "No, I can't." And my wife would be like, "Just pause it." And I'd be like, "You don't understand. I can't just pause it. I'll die."
Game. No, it's not. It's totally
Mom,
I'll die.
Mom, it's a multiplayer game. I can't pause it.
Lives at stake.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your book, you emphasize just how essential GoldenEye's multiplayer was to its legacy. Do you personally miss split screen gaming? Do you think that it can ever truly return?
Well, now it has because now I'm playing with some of my buddies online and I can look at my buddy Andrew's screen while he's playing.
That's true.
So the screen looking and the cheating.
Internet. That's exactly
absolutely.
That's the
kind
compromise.
Of fun. But I do miss playing in person, and of course,
smacking someone next to
how much of how much of that nostalgia is that you miss that mode of gaming, and how much of it is that we don't spend as much time with our friends in adulthood. You have your family life, you have your work life, and so you're not spending hours and hours. We don't have sleepovers anymore in adulthood. So part of it is just missing your youth.
Maybe you don't.
We should.
I know. I'm still living with friends. No shame.
That's awesome.
We strive for full accuracy on this show when compiling scripts, but every once in a while, we have to amend a story with a correction, whether due to faulty reporting or conflicting truths, from different sources. Did you ever run into this when gathering information?
You mean I found things that needed to be corrected?
It's like if you heard one from maybe someone was just misremembering, but
it's like maybe you heard story A from one person's story B, and it's like, wait a second, these things don't jive, or it's
the biggest thing they were all really inconsistent and unsure about was when they decided to take the game off the rails. There were some people who said we always intended it. That happened. Yeah, we always thought if we could get the technology, we'd do it, and other people said it was a total late in the game accident. They had absolutely different timelines on when it happened. So to compare what they were saying with what I knew, I was looking at footage from the different trade shows when they were showing clips of GoldenEye in production and things like that. And that helps me kind of track down a little bit more when they did it. Some of them said, "Oh, it was when Super Mario 64 came out. That's when we were inspired."
that was the what I have heard.
Others would say no, it was when it was because we played a lot of Doom. So the source of inspiration and when in the process they decided they wanted to do that varied really widely. And I tried to kind of make sure that was clear that it wasn't.
On the box here, I noticed I was glancing at this earlier. It still contains a lot of beta screenshots, what the old KF-7 Soviet looked like. But the first one is directly taken from that beta that the on-rail silo with the assault rifle and all that. So they do in the tidbits, they're like, oh, it's 3D and it's open. The multiplayer is nowhere to be. That's how I guess that happened.
There's that blood splatter too. You can see if you
it does have the old blood assets. The gore.
If you want to see all that fountain of blood that they want to talk about, it's just right on the back of the box too. Also, Randy, you have a GoldenEye box as a manual in there?
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
That's
is that like a PP 7 on your.
It is
Oh
a
yeah,
PP7,
it's an
yeah.
airsoft
God.
version.
That's amazing.
So you told me
I have
not
the
to-
watch. I have a watch that I should have worn it, but I have a watch that looks like the Bond watch.
Yes,
I have it, actually.
I
In
bought
fact,
him that
yeah.
as a gift. I think it's
Actually,
a
great.
gift one. Yeah.
Seeing your T-shirt, I immediately thought I should have worn the watch.
You should have worn the watch.
Yeah, we all
Yes,
should have our watches.
yes, no, that's
But I mean, that box art really shows you how rushed the end was and how rushed and overdue the multiplayer was. For all I know, they might have made the box art before they made the multiplayer.
Right,
They made it the last
yeah.
6 weeks. So like the marketing department might have already been putting that together.
Right.
You know, as
It's like you'd think that would be the thing that they advertised,
Right.
or just just one photo of the split screen, like. But other than the
Totally.
4 controllers on the front,
yeah.
and
And
It's very funny because I did an episode on Halo, and it's the exact same story. There was no
Yeah.
multiplayer until like the last 2 months,
that's
they
what
just-
made them have to re-rate it too.
They just
Yeah,
didn't.
they just
They
threw
just
it
didn't
in.
know. I mean,
Yeah.
they had no idea. Like they didn't know what they had.
It's hot off the presses.
And it's actually
Yeah.
it's you saying that it's like, you know, the one thing is that they were inconsistent on when they intend to get off rails. I think that is absolutely fascinating because this is the first time I am ever hearing that, and you're the only person that could have known that because you interviewed all of them. So you just, I'm not even joking. I am like, it struck me. It's like, this is a new piece of GoldenEye knowledge that you just added out there that it's like,
Let's punch
one
up
of
the
the
wiki.
things is that it's like, yeah, of course. Yeah. It's like, I mean,
Add an addendum.
but it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, all of them, you know, it's like all of them disagree
Yeah.
on when that point. Well, that's actually absolutely
I-
fascinating.
It was super annoying for me from a writer's standpoint because I
Oh,
really
sure,
wanted to have this
sure.
be like a
Like, when
big
the fuck did
moment,
this
you know,
happen?
like yeah. So I kind of just, you know, like took some scenes where I could, but yeah, it's funny how they all have such different, on that one point they have really, really different takes on things.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess you can blame them. It's been 25 years, I suppose.
Yeah,
I was about
right,
to ask about
right,
if there was any more common misconception on like the production or the launch that maybe you believe needed further elaboration, but I think that's probably it.
That's probably
yeah.
it.
I think that was the big one. Yeah,
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Actually, can I interject with a quick question here?
Oh,
off the
okay,
cuff?
all right.
How did you wind up getting in contact with all these team members? Actually,
wow. Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
because it's like I think it's
How'd
like
you find
obviously,
them?
obviously they have Twitter but it's like
Yeah.
it must have been you had to go through the effort of getting into contact with each one of them, setting it up. It's like how did you wind up doing that?
Yeah, so I mean, I went to school for journalism back in the day, and so I have some some skills around making contact and persuading people to talk to me. But really, if you
It's a
can
good
get
skill.
one,
Yeah.
and so like David Doak, right, from an initial research, like David Doak is the mascot of the GoldenEye team.
Oh, yes.
He's on
He
Twitter
embraces
all the
that,
time.
too.
He will be interviewed by anyone. Literally, you guys could ask him for an interview, and I'm sure he would say yes. Like he
Oh,
will sit
shit.
for any.
Yeah.
He'll sit for anyone. Like he's so generous. He loves talking about it. He's very
It's such a good
extroverted.
idea.
He talked with me for like 2 hours. I was like, David, I have to go
That
teach.
is
I
incredible.
have to make you stop talking because he kept going on and on. So he's such a generous guy. So once you build the trust with one of them, right? Like they're all still connected. And so you can ask
Yeah.
them like, hey, will you be willing to put in a good word for me with this guy or get me this guy's contact information? So that's kind of part of the process. But also when I came to them, I tried to have a really articulate pitch about like what is different about my book, why they should talk to me, and kind of feel like I'm not going to waste your time. I've already read all these interviews. I'm going to ask you new things, and this is why I'm doing this out of respect and love for your work.
Yeah.
So just really trying to persuade them that I'm a trustworthy person to talk to.
You know what? Yes, that's it. That is actually
That's
very
a very good
cool.
answer, yeah.
And it's like it's so heartwarming to see that much really just fan engagement from David Doak. That is just like, and I agree.
Yeah.
And I've read plenty of his tweets, and you're right. He loves it when
Still the best profile picture.
I mean, he sat down and like played with the GoldenEye Source guys on their
That's right. I
anniversary
saw
of
you mention that
GoldenEye
in there,
Source,
yeah.
and like
Yeah.
he's just and I think he's very touched by the role. I mean, if you think about it, like they all probably feel differently about the fact that the biggest thing they did in their career, they did as 22-year-olds, right? Like
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
might feel really proud about that, and some people might feel really bummed out about that, or
You know
really
what?
kind of
That's a good
sick
point.
of talking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So they all had different levels of enthusiasm or excitement or nostalgia. And I totally respect that. And they were all so generous. But David Doak really, he gets teared up. He gets teared up, like choked up talking about, people coming to him with like copies, cartridges with their names scrawled on it, like Andy from Toy Story, like, and wanting him to sign their, like, he's like, I made their childhoods, so I think they all have like a profound respect for,
So sweet.
for what it's meant. Yeah.
And and I can totally understand. It's like it must be a little bit sometimes like a musician being asked to, play like
I was
the
actually
hit
about to.
play the hit from 20 years
Right.
ago, and it's just like, and
Example,
I'm sure a lot of them are doing work that they're hyper engaged in, and they're probably just like, but yeah, I can totally understand. I think it's forgivable if sometimes it's like,
And that was a big part of the interviews was I really wanted to hear about what they've been doing since and what they're up to now that they're excited about. And so those are good ways to but really they love each other so much that talking to each other about talking to them about, well, when's the last time you saw Brett? When's the last time you hung out with Duncan? And they'd be like, oh, I got a beer with him when I was in town, and we all just had dinner. Like, it's just so wholesome. I can't tell you. Like,
it truly is.
And another one who's a big talker and big mascot is Grant Kirkhope. He's always on Twitter, right? Always talking.
Let me tell you how much I love Grant.
He was very active when the remaster came out.
Grant Kirkhope is probably my favorite game musician. I could listen to his music all the time. So that is so cool that you got.
And his personality really reflects that music. He's very sweet and genuine and sincere and goofy and funny. And all of them seemed very kind of like they knew how rare it was to get along with each other that much while working on a project.
No pun intended there, or was that
none of them? Yeah, none of them told me about any kind of fighting or arguing. Maybe it happened and they just didn't want to talk about it. But
there was
none of them
like
said
one minor incident. You brought up with the tracer fire, and then that was like it. And it's like, and the fact that it's like as recently
they got the most mad at each other when they were like playing.
Competitive against each other.
Yeah, when they were just like shooting the shit, playing playing their little games in the break room. They would like they would yell at each other.
Yeah, Bomberman. That was a great
Bomberman. Yeah.
It's like the fact that they were just hanging out as recently, like just like when like during COVID, just keeping each other company.
And they play online.
Touch,
I know that I think Carl and David play it together a lot online. So yeah, it's very sweet.
That rules.
That is actually
Or sorry, Steve and David play together a lot online. I think.
Yeah.
We noticed that you didn't appear to be much of a fan of the 007 titles that came after. While I personally agree the quality of those could range drastically year to year, nothing came close to rivaling the heights of GoldenEye. Was there ever one that you thought stood out? I thought a few were pretty, like, I was into...
and I do talk about this in the book, the best thing if you're a huge GoldenEye fan is to play the mods. So I love, like, the Goldfinger mod is dope. Like,
Perfect
that
Dark or Time Splitters.
Of course. Right.
Which were also, like...
Yeah, so actually... funny story. One of the gifts that he got me one year was a repro cart of Goldfinger 64.
Yes, we have
a physical copy.
And
we're playing through it, and
so fun.
It's tremendous.
Yeah,
it's really hard. It's really hard.
We never beat it.
We never beat it.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have either. But it's just really cool to see that exact same art style in those assets. In a new story.
You feel
very
at
much
home like instantly.
Yeah.
That's the real sequel.
Same feel. Yes. Totally.
We played that and we watched the movie right afterward and we were like, oh my god, they recreated the sets from this movie like prop for prop.
That's right.
And I was stunned because it was just like, I know that you had gotten that for me. I did not realize that was enough of a big mod that when you mentioned in the book, I was like, no way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that this was like a thing. Yeah. I thought it was just like a mod you
There's a
found
couple
somewhere.
others too, but that's the big one.
Yeah.
I believe that they actually, at some point, those creators got in touch with some of the GoldenEye guys and they kind of helped them along
Oh, that explains so much.
They're, again, so generous.
Wow.
Yeah. And especially, following off the mods is that, for a long time in high school and throughout, it's like we also got so psyched when we heard about fan conversions, especially like the source. And it's like every so often there would be like a fan project that would pop up, and it's like I feel like there's so many fan projects out there that were trying to get it done. Source, obviously was a big one of them, but it's
that XBLA leak was still life changing to me. That I still return to that.
Yeah.
I wish there was an official way for it to.
But I think
be out there, but.
I think in the end, I would just say I commend you for doing such a good job because there's so much out there in the fan community that you managed to, you managed to bring together the biggest examples, and I thought that was very good research, in my opinion.
Yeah, and give attention to them, like their hard work. So.
You managed to highlight some of the big contributions of the fans.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean it's hard. There was that one that just got shut down. Do you guys know
was that 25?
Yeah. They got copyrighted
by MGM.
Yeah. So he's like he's still gonna make it. It's just he can't like use the word James Bond anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was kind of like It's weird how far I've gotten in this process and no one's copyrighted me yet. But yeah, because he got quite far, and he has like an original soundtrack made in the style. And yeah, wow. I interviewed the developer and I couldn't include any of it in there. But he's
have you? This is kind of off the cuff, but have you heard of Agents Never Die? There was a demo of it on Steam last year.
No, I haven't.
Should check that out. It's like very throwback. I think it's maybe one or a few people that are building their own kind of with the same cool. polygonal like
the
graphical
same
style.
Engine, make its own legally distinct Bond.
It's still not all the way there. It's trying to capture the spirit. It succeeds in some ways, fails in a few others. But are you optimistic about IO Interactive's upcoming take on Bond, the Hitman?
Are you familiar with IO's?
I don't know too much about it. I've heard some rumors, but how do you guys feel about it?
They've got
It'll probably be more in line with the film or the books, but maybe that I don't think it'll be analogous to GoldenEye.
Oh yeah, no,
it's probably less action oriented and more.
IO Interactive
like
has
the Mission Impossible game.
Yeah, right.
In the N64.
They have very good chops helming the Hitman series, especially with what they've done with it recently, which is
those Hitman reboots are phenomenal.
And he's an assassin, and the game it's a big open stage, and you have to find creative ways to assassinate people. So it's like they have the chops to do it, and that with a Bond in it probably will feel more spy-like than, like mass murdering Spetsnaz. Like, it's like you are in this place and you have to actually go and assassinate someone, steal documents. So, I mean, they've got good credentials. Like, and I think that means that I trust them. I think the pedigree is there. And it's like, I mean, listen.
Yeah,
games fail for whatever reason to succeed. So we'll see when it comes out.
I think the weirdest thing to me about all of these sequels is that, like, these guys who made the original are still around. There's a point in my book where I'm talking about how they were like given the opportunity and then it was taken away.
Oh, with the remake,
the remake, and it's like they're just out there like, okay, every time there's a new Mario game, Miyamoto is involved. Like that's why
he's consulting, and to some degree or another, yeah.
And so I loved Martin Hollis kind of saying like, it's weird that like they could have hired us to do this.
That is,
didn't. Like,
it never sat right with me. Yeah, It was really gratifying to read such gracious compliments to Rare and their work throughout the book, especially from your conversations with John Romero, who's frequently named one of the forefathers of the FPS genre. It's so important to see someone of that status acknowledge the importance of GoldenEye with regard to not only what he helped found, but also where the industry would go moving forward. Do you feel GoldenEye's influence stretches far beyond simply labeling it as a shooter? It certainly seems to have connected with a much wider audience than anyone anticipated.
Yeah, there's just something about the timing of it that it's become such a point of nostalgia, right? Like I feel like Gen X has like their Doom and their Quake, and then
the boomer shooters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we have our GoldenEye and our Halo, and so it's just it does feel very generational in that way, and so that's why I wanted to talk to. Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to talk to Romero. Yeah, and then the Gen Z is like Fortnite or whatever. So it's like I just really wanted to talk to Romero for that reason.
Sorry, this segues into my next question perfectly.
Okay,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that
it was important to me to talk to him to kind of like just situate it in its history, since it's not the father of anything, but it might be like it's somewhere
cool uncle.
In the mix. It's very influential in everything that came after, but it was influenced by these things that came before. So I liked that it was at this really interesting place, beginning of first-person shooters on consoles, but not the beginning of first-person shooters in general. And one thing I'm super interested and excited for is the potential for people my students' age, like Gen Z, to get to experience the game on the Switch and the Xbox for the first time. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing.
It's cool that there's a means out there that's not plagued with such technical complications or anything you don't need to emulate anymore.
Right.
Track down old hardware.
Yes, absolutely.
But we were very endeared by your description of how GoldenEye became this shared cultural touchstone, like this moment for so many, as well as its reputation as an almost gateway drug in motivating its players to seek out similar experiences. Its maturity, scale, aesthetic, realism, and humor, it just encapsulated growing up for millions of Nintendo kids like ourselves. Yeah. And have you come across any modern games that you believe could have served as a similar rite of passage? But I guess, you bringing up like Fortnite and stuff, like maybe that's what it is to them.
Fortnite comes to mind for sure. But I'm interested in hearing it's like
what I'm really excited to see in like another 25 years is what games like Animal Crossing that were so popular during the pandemic will mean to people growing up and people surviving this time when we were all trapped in our houses and video games were the only way to leave, right? So I'm really curious what the pandemic, nostalgic cultural artifact will be. I think it'll be Animal Crossing because that's how we were visiting each other. We were in islands. I mean, it's all a metaphor for what we were doing, and we had to go visit each other.
I can pretend like in life,
right.
Life is normal.
And I have one of my best friends who I used to play GoldenEye with in high school. He just had a baby last week, and I wrote him a poem. I like to write poems for my friends when they have babies, and I sent him. And he's a huge Animal Crossing fan, and like he lived in Animal Crossing during the pandemic. So I sent him this poem for his new baby, and it's called "A New Villager Has Arrived." So I think that like it's already got some and boss fight.
Yes, they just announced an Animal
Crossing. Yeah, exactly. I was like, wait, am I allowed to say anything? But yeah, so there'll be a boss fight Animal Crossing book. And, yeah. So I'm really excited in particular to see like just what that moment will look like as far as like how game historians will view the role of gaming in that moment.
Animal Crossing got my one partner through the pandemic, I'm thankful for it at least.
Nice.
Actually, same here. Yeah. She's moved on to Overwatch and Pokemon now. So,
very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy to look back and realize just how this whole endeavor came together the way it did. Do you ever see a company like Nintendo taking a GoldenEye style risk like this in the future? Do you think a movie to game adaptation will ever hit with this level of acclaim again?
When was the last movie to game adaptation? That's a good question. But anyway,
they still happen, but they're just like usually like cell phone apps, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, and so everything I said in my book about, movies to games always suck and games to movies suck even worse. Yeah. But now we have The Last of Us.
We were literally.
Oh my God. Like, this has upended everything we thought we knew. And of course, like Spider-Man, right? So like, I do think that.
We're a bit behind, but we just watched episode 3 last night, the one with Bill, Nick Offerman.
Oh my God, it's so good. So I do think that maybe that idea of like IP and movies to games and games to movies might be getting shifted.
Yeah, maybe that wall finally.
And in some ways, Nintendo is always taking risks, right? So like sometimes the risks pay off, sometimes the risks fail.
Sometimes you get Labo.
Yeah, exactly. In many ways, like just to go back, like Animal Crossing is a really weird game. That
didn't even come to the United States at first.
Yeah, right. So I think that I think that they're kind of always up to some weird, risky things, and I'm interested in the stories too about like how game developers decide who gets these projects. So like the story of taking a risk even within Rare on Martin Hollis, this kid who had never worked on it. He had made like the arcade port of Killer Instinct, and they're like, yeah, we'll let you be the head of a game just because he came to them and he was like, I think I should make this game, and they were
I'm
like,
all about giving more chances to that. You never know what you're gonna get out of it.
Right. Yeah. And the fact that a lot of the reasons the game succeeded so well is because they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what was a cliche. They didn't know what they couldn't do. Yeah. So I hope that can kind of stand in for just like how creative work gets produced in general is through risk and experiment and taking chances on people and giving people resources to fool around and mess up, and whether that's writing a symphony or writing a movie or writing a book of poems. We need space for rookies to fuck up.
Failure's okay. It's helpful.
And
Nintendo
necessary.
has this magic to them where like when Breath of the Wild got announced and they're like, you see that mountain, you can go there, and everybody's like, Skyrim did that in 2012, man, or 2011.
Yes.
But then Breath of the Wild comes out and everybody's like, they're like, yeah, it's an open world game. The Witcher did it, Elder Scrolls did it, and you're like, yeah, but it's different, man.
They repackage it, and I mean, I do think that one of the reasons GoldenEye was such a huge success is because it was at this incredibly amazing point in history of the Rare Nintendo collaboration. That they
the
just
best partnership there ever was.
They were just grooving with their ethos, their spirit of hard work, and of Nintendo means leave luck to heaven. Like, just work your ass off, stay humble, don't ever think you've succeeded so much that it's a given. That very much was the
Rare stuff post that acquisition like connect with you at all, or
I'm sorry.
You ever play Grabbed by the Ghoulies?
Oh God, yeah, no, I mean,
repertoire,
I really
disappointing few years.
I know, I really like Simon Parkin's quote about the Rare Microsoft, like the groom was rich and the bride was beautiful, and it's a tragic marriage.
It's a tragic marriage.
I
thought
Pour one out.
I thought it was kind of a stunning, when Steve and David wanted to go form Free Radical and do Time Splitters.
Yeah.
How discouraging and hostile the Stampers were to them, saying it's like they seemed like they were, and it's like I can understand because
it was more just taking it personally. Like,
I totally understand because it's like they made it. Yes, it was a personal company, and so they've probably felt a little bit. Probably a little bit let down, and also they're in the middle of a huge production.
It's like when someone quits your band.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel good, even if you understand. Like,
but the deep irony there is that they were like, we don't think you're going to last very long. The industry is different. And, Free Radical was still making good games, in the late 2000s, and Rare's golden era was like literally like a couple
in the
years
rear view.
It was just like they were a couple years behind that Microsoft. It's like Free Radical outlasted you guys.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. I mean, what's weird about Rare at that time was that they literally had all their family working for them. Like the entire family was working. Like their dad, their mom, their sister, their brother. Like everyone was working there.
In the garden outside.
So when you started this company and it was just literally you and your brother, the Stampers, like I kind of get why they would have this hierarchical attitude about like you're our employees. We are the boss. You work for us. Like you're not one of us. You're not you're not a Stamper. But at the same time, because they have this family attitude, they would feel really hurt. But the GoldenEye guys, like I do think they earned more. They deserved more space to be part of the leadership. And so I'm glad that they especially Martin Hollis, like he just has such a interesting brain and needed space to be more creative.
Yeah,
totally.
It got more like stifled as those years went on. But lastly, assuming you're able to tell us, of course, are you currently in the middle of any writing projects, or do you plan on contributing more to the boss fight line in the future?
Oh man, I think Gabe would kill me if I pitched him another book, because I'm the only boss fight author who's written 2 books.
Randy noticed that. He pointed out. She's like,
but someday I mean,
2 of my
I don't
favorite
know.
games of all time.
Yeah,
Like,
I would.
Are there any games in particular that you would give the same like documentary treatment that you did for GoldenEye?
God, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have an answer right now, but
that's fair. I don't think a gargantuan task that you just went through.
I love writing these books because I love thinking about games. I am putting together a video games course to teach at my university, so that should be really fun. Like it'll be video games and meaning. So just like how do people make meaning out of games as religion, as ways to make money, as ways to find your love of your life, as ways to connect with friends, all of that. But writing-wise, I'm on sabbatical right now, which is amazing. My wife is pregnant with our second child. She's due at the end of
congratulations.
May. Thank you. Yeah. So I do have this like ticking clock. So from now till May, I'm writing a second draft of a novel.
You're juggling all that and still writing?
It's sabbatical, right? So I'm not teaching. So I'm writing a post-apocalyptic novel about a world where everybody's disappeared from the face of the earth except about 300,000 people worldwide, and there's a woman trying to traverse her way through the deep south to find her twin sister.
That is incredible.
I like that concept. That's like that has like the Children of Men pitch where it's just like, what if this in a sentence? And I was like, all right, like what would life be like if there were only that many people remaining?
Yes, I'm very interested in emptiness. I'm very, very interested in like the needle in the haystack problem and just infinite survival resources, but not enough people.
That is I just gotta say I commend your writing range, because now it's like you've gotten poetry, nonfiction. Now you go so well done.
I mean, we'll see. It's not like I have an agent or a publisher yet. I'm just working on it, and we'll see where it goes. But it's been a lot of fun to think about, just different to make plot, to make character. I've never done this before, so it's super fun.
And I'm just gonna. Okay. I don't know if you want to say something first. I was just gonna add something for.
If you got a quick follow, because I got another question I want to.
Oh, mine's more of a closure, so I'll let you go first.
So you had mentioned actually, what do your students think of your books? Have any of them picked them up? Have they come to you, talk to you about it's just like, I mean, like you said, Gen Z, it's like a GoldenEye. It can be a generational thing. I'm not expecting Zoomers to be like, can you believe it? GoldenEye is out. It's just like, but it's like, have any of them either discovered the game through your work or were curious, they wanted to read about this, or just like, are
They
they
don't
just
give
like
a shit about my work. They don't care at all. Oh my god, they're so sweet. And sometimes they'll go to my website and read a poem, but like they have very active lives. All my students are like, they have like 3 jobs and like all these siblings to take care of, and like they have their own games they're playing and their own works that they're writing. So like they just come to my class, and if they've done the homwork, then I'm happy. That's all I need them to do.
Fair enough.
But I've had like a couple have been like, yeah, I think it's really cool that you write about video games because I really like video games, but mostly we talk about video games more than they like read my work, which is totally fun. So.
Well, I mean, I think that's just it. It's just like if you get a good kick out of just talking with them. And I also gotta say, you were a great professor because sometimes you show up and it's just like, you mean you haven't read these 2 foundational texts to the course already and highlight all of them? And it's like, no, dude. Okay.
Right. No, you've got to kind of assume that they didn't have. I mean, what I always think about as a college professor is like, I remember when I was in college, and it's like you have a couple things going on other than your homework, right? Like, I'm like looking at my class and I'm like, oh, some of them like tried drugs for the first time last night, and some of them, just like broke up with their first boyfriend, and like, they have like a whole lot going on.
You never know what's happening like behind the scenes.
It just is more important than my class. So like, if you go with that attitude, you'll never be upset about them not doing the homework.
That's very understanding of you.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Amazing.
I have days that it annoys me, but we try to find workarounds.
Actually, and I mean, I'm gonna, since we have a little bit of time, I mean, if you ever do another boss fight book, you've got the research. You can always do time splitters, which I think, I mean,
oh my God.
I know there's a bit of overlap there with the content in the book, but it's like you've got the context and also, a lot
context.
of the context.
The context and the context.
And it's like we're big fans of the time splitter series. That has a big place in our hearts. So it's like, I'm wondering if there's a story there, but at any rate, just
that's such a good idea. Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
And my last question is actually for you, Matt, but this is for her to hear. What was your favorite part of the book?
Okay, that's a broad question.
Because mine was when they were beating the shit out of Duncan in the motion capture.
Just about to say that exact same moment.
Like laughing to myself like a maniac at night reading
I was just about to say that exact part where Duncan is talking about being the mocap, and they told him because it's like, well, you're flinching if we see it, so we're gonna blindfold you and then do all this shit. And it's like, it was so infinitely.
I like their comment on too. They're just like, he was a good sport about it. We would never get away with that today.
It totally like matches their personalities too. Like Duncan is so sweet and he's a little bit quieter, and you can totally picture him being like, okay, I'll do it. And then Brett is like your like mischievous little brother. He's like just always Googling, and during the interview he was like, can I show you all of the like James Bond memorabilia in my house? Do you want to take a tour?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you can just picture Brett being like, we have to do this, Duncan.
Actually, and this is probably a good line to end on. There is this is one of the lines that I bookmarked, but someone you interviewed says something to the effect of just like, nothing will ever be better than GoldenEye, not even GoldenEye, or something to that effect. And it's like you're talking about the remake, but it's also
a snapshot of it.
Yeah, it's in reference to the remake, but also it's just like, it is very much, I feel like, carries the spirit of like a game is a time and a place.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't bring back the 90s. We can't bring back, that technology is never going to revert back to the point where that was cutting edge. And so it's like, I thought that was very poetic, that it's like, it's like you can't make a better GoldenEye because a better GoldenEye is no longer possible.
Yes.
And it's like, that was, I mean, I thought it was such a poetic line. So
I'm glad you brought that up. Like, so in the Super Mario Brothers 3 book, I talk a lot about nostalgia and what that means. And it comes from the Greek words, nostos, to return, and algos, pain. And so the pain of not being able to return to one's place of origin. So nostalgia is actually very place oriented. And when we have nostalgia for our childhood, we're often associating it with like, oh, the backyard playground where I played with my brother, or the basketball court at school. And
there's
video games
an element of melancholy.
There's a
to
place,
it.
and what's so interesting about a video game is that you can return to the places of your childhood.
Yes.
You can go back and stand in the same spot on Dam that you stood in when you were 13 playing with your little brother. And that is the amazing way that video game both triggers nostalgia and offers us a space to fulfill it.
and
get
having
that
just
satisfaction.
such instantaneous access to it. I mean,
Yeah.
these guys just like weekends ago watched me play Super Mario Brothers 3 on a CRT original hardware just randomly one Saturday.
Nice,
like, you know,
nice. And it's cool because I just started playing I started playing Super Mario Brothers 3 with my dad when I was like 4 years old. And he sat me down. This is the first game I ever played. I write about it in my book.
Yeah, me too.
But now
one of the earliest pictures of me is
it's such a good. So now my daughter is 4, and I just started her on Super Mario Brothers 3.
What was your first game? Yes,
and it's her first game. She sucks at it, but I'm trying to teach her to get better. I'm like, you have to jump.
What's she get?
Yeah, but it's great because I can take her to the places of my childhood without ever leaving my couch. You know, we get to be there together.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Man, you know what?
That's a passing of the torch right there.
Yeah.
I wish we had more time because it's like I've got that obsession with nostalgia, specifically, what it means in an era
We get into philosophical.
Oh my God,
we
we get into like we can go to 3 a.m. talking about how nostalgia has affected our modern era, how it's mined, and also it's just like it's like
you can still package it and sell it to us.
I was just like, what does nostalgia mean when this media is no longer lost, and it's like you can keep returning
or
to
rare.
It. Right. It's like you said, nostalgia is like longing for a place that you were before. It's like, but what does nostalgia mean when it's like you can just go back there instantly? It's like it
hasn't changed. It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
It's exactly the same. There's not they didn't cut the tree down in the backyard. They didn't.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if you're interested in it, like
that's the problem with service games now, right? You can,
you're
shaping that
exactly
vision into
right,
something.
right.
Yes.
And Doak talked about that too, about how GoldenEye's toward that end of the era where it's a physical artifact. You have it on your table right now, where it is a object in addition to a place, in addition to a digital space. And so there is, in game studies, the theoreticians, they're talking about nostalgia from a philosophical standpoint, from a psychological standpoint. Like they're really studying nostalgia in gaming.
Yeah.
There's whole books written about this. It's fascinating.
That is and you know what's funny? It's like
dig into that.
Even though I'm very aware of the psychological mechanisms that make nostalgia what it is. It's like I feel like I simultaneously loathe it a little bit, but then I keep seeking it out anyway. It's like it's like you can't.
I still can't help myself.
There's part of me that is just like, I don't like my nostalgia package, but it's like you still, when it like comes to GoldenEye,
you almost want to stumble on it, right? Like
Yes,
it's like when you were when we were younger. It's like if you heard your favorite song on the radio or your favorite episode of a cartoon came on, it's like. It felt that much more powerful because you're like, oh shit, like as opposed to now it's like, well, I can just listen to that song anytime or watch that episode, that cartoon show anytime on my phone. So it's like you're kind of taking away like the effort of it because we have this like access like.
I mean, the other thing I've really noticed since having a kid is this really strange phenomenon of anticipatory nostalgia. And so it often comes from like when I'm out with my kid, especially when she was a lot littler, like when she was little tiny baby, little tiny toddler, I would be out, it still happens. Like I'm out at the store and I see like older women kind of smiling very longingly and sadly at me and my daughter. And I see on their faces, like, I miss when my kid was that small. I miss having a small child. And I'm like, fucking, it's the worst. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. This kid is shitty. Like, but I, in that moment, am like, oh my God, yeah, she's not going to be small forever. Like, I'm feeling nostalgia before I even need to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's the line, you're going
to be nostalgic for this later.
It's like the thing about the good old days is like you wish you knew when you were in them. Before they're actually over, and I think it's such a powerful line.
You're in them. We're in them right now.
We're also still desperate to hold on to that stuff, so it almost doesn't become like
right. You want to. It's like you want to keep the good old times going.
Our whole group is like pretty much like we've known each other since high school, and we still have regular nights where we play Rock Band and Smash Brothers. It's like.
Well, and so then to take it like even deeper into the weird philosophy, like, so why do we do that? Because we're afraid of aging, because we're afraid of death. And what do we get out of video games? The ability to live forever, to overcome death, to keep coming back again and again and again. There is no game over.
Mortality isn't an issue there.
Yeah, right. It all comes down to that.
That's a really smart observation. Yeah. It's just like changed my perspective on games.
Me and Randy have had hours long discussions into the night about this stuff. And truthfully, we will probably be having these same discussions about GoldenEye in another 25 years.
Yeah.
The same things we're talking about, the same things
we just put ourselves through unlocking every cheat code and getting the 1,000 point achievement.
Oh my God. I can't tell you how excited I am for 50 years from now when all the nursing homes just have like N64s set up and you have all these old people like, motherfucker!
Like, I've heard there are already instances of that kind of happening. Yeah.
Really?
Just shouting that from down low.
Yeah.
In the future, they won't have like those plastic like 100 games in one. They're gonna have 100 consoles in one, and just like the entire, and they'll have like a petabyte of games on a chip or like a server, and it's like, But no, you're 100% right. But man, I truly believe that if we could have an entire episode talking to you about the psychology of nostalgia. I think because
if you ever want to, I'm happy to be a part of it. I'll refresh all my notes on nostalgia
because I'm truly obsessed with that. Like it's like the idea of especially places, memories of places. It's like it really is like a fascination of mine where it's like like you said, it's like you go back home and the trees aren't cut down. And it's like
they just cut my trees down,
and it's like it's like I would love to have a discussion.
And it's very connected to the phenomenon that game scholar Henry Jenkins talks about in gaming called topophilia. Which is like the love of maps and exploring places. And so video games are all about places and going to new worlds. Like, what's the next world? The ice world, the pipe world, the fire world. Like, it's so of course the nostalgia is rooted in place because the joy of playing is rooted in place. And
oh my,
I think I'm gonna bring up
you just blew
liminal spaces.
She just blew my mind. I did not know there was a word for it, but I am obsessed. I am
like you knew the definition before the term.
It's like I always tell people I was like, if you want to get me into a good game, make it have great level design. And I am obsessed with these old spaces in video games. I am so you have no idea. It's like
so
really
you're already so well prepared, 2 steps ahead of like
you really just like you have no idea. You just open like an entire. This is God. All right. Well,
I mean,
anyway,
it's like why I'm really into games like 7 Days to Die or Ark or whatever, and it's like I just want to build a base. I just want to build a base and live in it. That's all I want to do. I'm just like playing with a dollhouse basically, but in a game. Like I don't care about killing anyone or going anywhere. I just want to like make a safe space. So what's the psychology there, right? Like
nice here.
You know what? I think that is part of the reason that it's just like I prefer the handcrafted versus a lot of level design is just AI generator. It's
or reads too corporate, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean even like levels where it's just like it's the levels are just they're
procedurally generated.
Thank you for the word.
Okay. Yes.
Procedurally generated
levels.
levels.
There's a big wave of
But that means that when I go back to that game later on, like 10 years down the line,
Still
there's going to be a new procedurally generated level. But Clanker's Cavern from Banjo-Kazooie will always be Clanker's Cavern. And it's like, it will never change. And that is like, I mean, it's like, I will always have that. And it's crazy because it's like, I won't remember what I had for goddamn breakfast, but I can tell you where every jiggy is in freaking
and a game, a developer like Super Mario Brothers 3, that game really understood that part of what makes a game fun is finding secrets and knowing where the secrets are. Like in the first world of Super Mario Brothers 3, how many secret worlds? There's secret worlds within secret worlds and secret levels within secret spaces. There's like 100 different kinds of secrets, and it becomes a kind of folklore you can share with your family, right? So my dad showed me where the whistle is hidden in level 3 of Super Mario Brothers, 3.
That white block.
And now every time I show my 4-year-old, like she barely knows what's going on. She's just, I'm like, okay, you have to hold down here on this white block, and then
don't
she's
get
like,
the fire flower. You need the leaf so you can fly up in the castle.
Right,
and go
exactly.
To the other.
So it becomes this like folklore, like handing down this knowledge of like this space that's not even real, but it is. Yeah, it's a trip. It's a real trip.
You managed to get both flutes. No, don't just go to World 2. Go to World 8.
Exactly, and you can skip right over the second row, which is insane. That's like a weird glitch.
When I discovered that.
Yeah.
So are you going to say something, Austin?
I was going to say I had that moment last night because I was playing Halo Infinite with a couple of our friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I love Halo. And then I was like, wait a minute. I have the Master Chief Collection downloaded. And then I just booted up Halo 2. And I was like, come on, give me Coagulation. Give me a Lockout, one of those maps. And then a map popped up and it was like Warlock. And I was like, why don't I remember Warlock? And then it booted me in. I spawned into the map and I just went, Oh,
Yeah,
Warlock.
now I remember.
And it was like
Wow.
less than 30 seconds, and I'm just running around. I'm like, the shotgun's here. I know where the
Yes.
fucking needler is.
We were
Feels
watching
so good.
a
Yeah.
video last night, and they it was a firearm expert on
Yeah.
GameSpot was like,
Yes.
and he was talking about some aspects of the sound design of GoldenEye, and he brings up the pistol chirp, the choo noise,
the suppressor noise,
and like where it came from, and there was like a now mostly forgotten like noir film from the 40s, and it's like, but it's just like I feel that chirp is just in
Oh, yeah.
my head forever, living rent free. Like it's like.
Man, but yeah, no, if, God, you've really opened up this discussion to something that I'm very obsessed with.
It's good. I mean, like, I just feel like I'm 35 years old and I just walk. I never know where I'm going or what I'm doing, and so to have a level where you know where the flamethrower is and you know where the grenades are, and you know where everything is. To have mastery, right? To have mastery over
just on like what's the word I'm thinking of, where you're just like automated there.
Autopilot.
Yes.
Yeah, or
Yes.
autopilot.
Oh, it's
where
so
you,
deeply comforting.
It's like you could be thinking about something else too, or like talking to someone, and you're just on this line, like
100%. Yeah.
That was a conversation we had once where you were like, why do I like playing Mario 3 over and over again, but I can't sit down and play a new game? I was like, that's because you're on autopilot when you play Mario 3.
Right.
I know at some point we have to let you go. We're gonna keep you here all
I
night.
just have to
will
go
keep
pick
you
up
here.
my kid from school, but I hope to chat with you guys again sometime,
fine.
anytime,
Yes,
anytime you wanna. It's always
Once again,
it's a pleasure to meet
I
you.
can't thank you enough. Yes,
Thank you.
for meeting with us. This was amazing. We thinking about it all night.
Thanks.
I was nervous.
Yeah.
I've never done anything like this before, but
Oh,
and I'm
gosh.
super excited to get to use what we heard this afternoon on the official episode that we're set to record. Soon we're going to run through GoldenEye's kind of wild production ourselves.
Cool.
We'll be sure to give credit to your work constantly.
Oh, thanks. And you know, just to put it out there, I'm sure like any Boss Fight authors would be happy to talk to you. Gabe, the editor, would be happy to talk to you. So, you know, just always feel free to reach out to him or to the authors directly, because I know, you know, it's just so much fun to talk about games.
I don't know. I think Ashley Birch has a pretty full schedule right now.
What's Mike Drucker up to?
Yeah. But I mean, no, it's like, I think you bring up a good point. You don't know if you try, and quite frankly, it's just
That's
like,
what you did.
People
I'm
like
here today
talking
for
about
you,
you know
man.
what they spend a lot of time doing. It's fun to just be able to spout off. So yeah, might as well try.
Which, speaking of, is there anything else you'd like to plug before we say goodbye?
Yes, please.
Where can the people find you?
Oh my
Please.
gosh. Well, my website's AlyseKnorr.com, ALYSEKNORR.com. Yeah, and you can find
Sorry,
links
spell
to
that
all
one
my...
more time for the.
Sure,
I
sure.
spoke over you.
Oh, you're good. It's ALYSEKNORR.com, and there's links to all my books there. I've got two books of poetry coming out over the next couple years, so.
Great.
there's links
My
to
one
poems.
roommate, she's a published poet. So,
Oh, nice.
I'll
What's her
have to
name?
Introduce her to Ada.
Ada.
Ada Wolford.
Okay,
Ada
cool.
Wolford. I think
Awesome.
she just released something. Yeah.
Yep.
Great, good for her.
But everybody, that's Alyse Knorr. Check out her stuff, and yeah, perhaps we can do this again in the future.
Yeah, and I can, if you're a fan
We're
of,
always here.
if you're a fan of GoldenEye 007, I haven't gotten to the SMB3 book yet, but if you're a fan of GoldenEye 007, I cannot endorse this book enough.
Yes.
It's,
Thank you.
It's like, I think I
Thanks.
got through it
everything you wanna
probably
know.
in like 3 sittings because I just
Same. I couldn't put it
Oh,
down.
I
was
couldn't put
just
it down,
like, yeah.
and it's like I just had it on my desk,
It was
and I was
written for
supposed,
me.
yeah, I was
Oh,
supposed to be doing
thank
work,
you.
and I was like, all right, you know, I got some free time, and then it's like 2 hours later, I'm like still reading. I'm like, okay, I should probably do my actual job now, and
That's
not just
very
sit here and
kind.
read.
Thank you so much for checking it out and for having me.
Yeah.
I think
Look for us wherever on the socials or our website.
Yep.
I don't know. Sorry,
You want me to
He
do
normally
the-
does the plugs.
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at hotbuttoncast.com or at hotbuttoncast, also hotbuttoncast.com. All our episodes.
also I think I don't know. I mean, this might need to be edited out. You have the so our
What do I
friend,
have?
our friend here is also very verbose in writing his scripts, and he wrote 3 episodes worth of scripts for GoldenEye.
Oh, he said that.
Oh yeah. I didn't say it was 3, but it is. It's a whole trilogy.
It's
That's amazing. That's amazing.
you.
And it's
I love
only
it.
a trilogy because Tetris was 4 parts.
Tetris was 4 parts.
Well, that's actually oddly
I
appropriate.
tried to
so
condense it
listen
into
to
3.
it.
Yeah.
8.5 hours, I believe.
Oh
was
my
the final
God.
runtime of the Tetris.
I was gonna say it's like
Oh my
Randy.
God.
A tale that spans decades.
I can't wait to hear that.
I suggested to Randy. It's like Randy's done so much background.
We'll let you know when it's out. This guy's gonna edit it. I feel bad for you.
Yeah, it sounds
I'm used to
amazing.
it.
Randy could probably fill his own boss fight book with the amount of research he has probably put into that that Tetris episode for sure.
You should pitch one. You should pitch to Gabe the next time he's open.
Oh gosh. Maybe I could repurpose an old script. I don't know. I don't know if
I
that's
was
too
gonna
assuming.
say. I was gonna say Tetris. You did a lot of research.
Seriously,
I think there are
you should
already a few
absolutely
books
pitch
on
it.
that, though.
Yeah.
I actually
That's
so
how I
movie
got
coming
connected
out
with Gabe. Was I just randomly pitched him one April.
Really?
I wanted
Yeah.
to write a book about Super Mario Bros. 3. He's open to pitches from absolutely anyone, and so you might as well. You've got great
You've
credentials.
given me a lot to consider.
I did journalism in college and I did a little bit of gig writing afterwards, and it's like I always
There you
tell
go.
people, I'm just like, just ask them. They will probably say yes. It's like the fact that you want to do
If you
it.
write a good pitch, and you can convince him that like you're qualified to write the book, you know what you're talking about, and the book will sell because it's interesting, they'll probably say yes. Like it's a big catalog, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
really
and
valuable. We're leaving this all in. This is the best closer. I like it. So,
yeah. All right. So I
Awesome.
all
think
right.
it's it. We will let you
Well,
go.
y'all have a great rest of the week. Thanks
Thank
again
you
for
so
having
much.
me.
You too.
Take care.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.